Well, it's September, and that's great news because it means we have another Spirit of Star Trek coming up. September 20th, right here at First Presbyterian Church of Encino. And my guest that night, our guest that night, will be Chase Masterson from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. You knew her as Leeta, the Dabo girl. But you're going to find, if you come to this session of SOST, it's a whole lot more to Chase than being a Dabo girl. You were so enthusiastic, and that really made me feel good, because it was real validation of what we're trying to do here. Can you share with the folks why you want so badly to do this?
You know, I have to say right off the bat, my own journey of faith, or lack thereof, has been incredibly varied, and it's been a very humbling journey. I have had in my life so many doubts and so many periods of seeking and periods of lack of understanding and periods of great joy in understanding, that I thought it would be really good to share that and to open up a conversation that openly admits both faith and doubt, as I think we all have in varying degrees. And it's kind of a taboo subject. We all have faith. It's just, what do we put our faith in? And I think that particularly science fiction fans are deep seekers and deep thinkers. And I think it's a perfect opportunity to explore, what does faith mean to us as actors and to the people watching. And I just really appreciate you having me here.
Everyone we've had has been enthusiastic, but you've had, I don't know, a glow about you.
Thanks.
About doing this that tells me we're going to have a really great night.
I'm excited.
The other gift that you gave me was, before we had our first lunch, you called and said, "Can I bring somebody along?" And I said, "Sure," like I'm going to tell Chase Masterson not to bring somebody along to lunch. But you brought James Kerwin. And for those of you who don't know James, I know that there are a lot of folks in the Star Trek community that are already very familiar with you. James is a director, he's a physicist, and he is absolutely, totally, completely brilliant. And he's not brilliant in a arrogant, make you feel bad sense. He's not brilliant in a I've got to dominate the conversation sense. He's brilliant in a you feel brilliant too, because he takes his brilliant ideas and makes them understandable. Now, I know everything I know about quantum physics from Star Trek, a little from Stargate too. And here's a man who understands this subject inside and out, and I can actually have a conversation with him about it, which is pretty amazing. James is very involved in promoting the compatibility of Christianity and science. Not something we should be running from, something we should be embracing. He has a film coming out called Yesterday Was a Lie, great sci-fi, and Chase just happens, I think, to be in that film. I don't know how that worked. But James, thank you very much for everything you've given me.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you. I do want to correct one thing. I'm not a physicist.
You could have fooled me.
When I went to college, I've always had an interest in astrophysics, and when I went to college, I wanted to do a dual major in both film production and astrophysics, astronomy and physics. And as I was taking my courses, I realized that I would be in college till I was 31 if I was going to do that. And I decided that maybe wasn't the path that I wanted to go on. So I stopped my astronomy and physics degree, but I had enough for a minor in that field, and it's always been something that I'm fascinated with. So I try to use astrophysics and cosmology, quantum physics and particle physics in particular, in a lot of my work, but not in a you have to be a rocket scientist to understand it type of way, in a metaphorical kind of way, because I believe a lot of the advances in cosmology and quantum physics in particular shed wonderful insight into the human condition, both as a metaphor for the human condition and as very real, at least partial explanation for consciousness and who we are and why we are the way we are. And I think these are themes that do play into my latest film, Yesterday Was a Lie. Glad you mentioned this. In particular, it sheds a lot of insight into faith, I believe. And as you mentioned, I am fascinated by the intersection of science and faith, not just Christianity in particular, but all forms of faith, be it Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, shamanism, whatever.
I just want to add to something that's a bit off the subject, but on a train of thought that James had about tolerance, because that's such a loaded word in this realm in terms of both Star Trek and science fiction and in terms of faith. I think that tolerance begs the question of, are we therefore to either be tolerant or intolerant? And I don't think it's about tolerance at all. Personally, I think it's more about just love, passionate love, not even will tolerate you love, but I love you, who you are. And that's the kind of spirituality I believe in, and it's not in spite of who you are and because of who you are. It's just, there's such a beauty, as Star Trek so beautifully demonstrates, in diversity. And truly, I believe it's, I don't know, here I am going off on it, but I believe it's who God is, to love our differences passionately, rather than even be aware of them, much less point them out. You know, I mean, it's so much deeper and richer, I think, than tolerance. Or even acceptance. I think it goes even bigger than acceptance.
You're right. Tolerance does have I'll let you do that.
Right.
But I think it's got to be more than that. It's a respect. It's a mutual respect for the other person's thoughts and beliefs and journey and exploration and things like that. And I think that's something that I think Star Trek and a lot of science fiction. They're important themes. These are important themes. You can't just strip this stuff out. You can't not talk about this stuff. I mean, you can, but Joseph Campbell said this in Here with a Thousand Faces. He said, if you remove the discourse about this stuff, which a lot of the modern secular movement has tried to do, and literally just that stuff is old-fashioned and pointless. Remove it completely. You are tearing out a huge chunk of the human psyche, and the greatest stories and the greatest science fiction do. Battlestar Galactica did a great job of dealing with these themes. Star Trek touched on them, sometimes not others. Deep Space Nine obviously got into aspects of faith much more than the other series did.
We're going to talk some about Leeta too. I think the audience is going to hear about Leeta, but we'll be talking about her. We'll be talking about how that character developed, what you did, the spiritual basis for how you built that character. But for now, I don't want to give too much away, because this is going to be one amazing discussion. So I will just close this right now by saying you've gotten a taste of what the session is going to be like. I really hope you can be here September 20th, First Presbyterian Church of Encino, 4963 Balboa Boulevard. We'll see you then.